You get people all the time, shot, stabbed, car accidents, whatever it is. Doc, don't let me die. Don't let me die.
This is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast.
Pressure can crush the hardest substances on Earth, but pressure can also make diamonds. The difference comes in how you react to this inevitable and unforgiving force. Our reactions speak volumes and tell us who steps up and who steps out. If you look at pressure under a different microscope, you'll see opportunity. The adversity under stress allows someone to rise above and show true talent. This ability allows certain people to stand out amongst the crowd. Pressure often comes from unknown situations. Training can reduce, if not eradicate, pressure and turn it into something normal and familiar. Pressure is inevitable. Your reaction is up to you. I'm Kevin Donaldson, here with Mike Failace, and welcome to the Suffering Podcast. If you're a fan of overcoming adversity and overcoming suffering, then we're for you, because that's what we do here and that's the stories we highlight. So do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, please comment, now you can join. Ring the bell so you can get notified of all of our new content, and follow us on all social media so you can find out what we're up to. Tonight's a very special episode because it's somebody I've been trying to get in here for months and months, but he's a busy guy.
We had to pull a lot of strings to get him here.
And I've had a lot of anxiety about pronouncing his name because it ends in a vowel. It's Dr. Maurizio Miglietta.
You got it.
I did awesome.
Look at that.
I did, yeah, first shot. I practiced a lot, so.
That's what I said. I said he practiced all day, and I hope he practiced wrong.
That would have been great.
Before we start anything, let's give a big shout out to our marquee sponsor. That's Toyota of Hackensack. We don't trust anybody, but we do trust them. So if you're looking for a car, go to toyotahackensack.com and let them find you a car. So, Doc, each week we take a question from our audience. This one comes from Synergy 59853. Now, we've all worked on people at the end of their life, and he wants to know, or she, how heavy is the burden that you feel when you lose somebody that you're working on? You're our guest tonight. I want to lead this one off with you.
I would say if you don't own it, you shouldn't be doing it.
Own it. Just give our audience a little idea of how you own it.
When that patient comes in and their life is in my hands, I own them. You know, it's up to me. There's nobody else. And
you're the last line of defense.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And if I don't do my job, it's not going to be a good day for you or your family.
Or for you.
Yeah, or for me. Exactly.
Yeah.
And the point is, I own it. And I always look at things after the fact. What could I have done better? What could I have done differently? And when things don't go well, I beat myself up. I don't sleep at night. I relive it over the next couple of days. So it doesn't happen again. That's what I mean by I own it.
Well, does it ever chip away at your humanity? It doesn't sound like it does. If you're staying awake at night after you lose somebody, over time you become callous to that.
Yeah. I mean, to do the kind of job that first responders do, that doctors do, you have to be there has to be a little bit of a wall up, or else you wouldn't be able to do it. You know, we've seen the worst of the worst.
We've seen people at their worst.
Yeah.
But here's the difference between us and someone like you. We work on them to get them to you. But once they're in your hands, we can breathe. Okay, now it's in the professional's hands. And now the pressure is transferred to you exponentially.
Yeah. When you're the last line, there's nobody else.
Yeah, there's nobody else.
We could, like, if we go on a CPR call or something like that, when the EMTs get there, there's people behind us. Yeah. When the EMTs get there, when the paramedics get there, there's people behind the EMTs.
Well, it's that higher medical authority, and there is none higher than you. Obviously, we're here to talk about the suffering of a trauma surgeon, and you're the last line. Mike, what do you think?
You know, I mean, it's heavy, and it sticks with you all day. I mean, like I said, to me, some of the worst things were the CPR calls. Yeah. You know, we had a guy, he vapor locked on his bed and pulled him off the bed. We're doing CPR on the floor, and I look up, and his little daughter is sitting right behind it, laying on the bed like this. She goes, "Is my daddy going to live?" I'm like,
I think that's one of the toughest parts. It's not that person when they're having the worst day of their life. Oftentimes, it's their body's way of dealing it. They're kind of not aware of what's going on. But I find that it's the family members that are crying over the loved ones, that are screaming. You can hear them in the waiting room crying. I find that harder to deal with than that direct person sometimes. So I
had a guy who I knew. I was doing CPR on him, and I know his son went to Notre Dame, and this guy was a big Notre Dame fan. as I'm doing CPR on them, they tell you, talk to them, do what you got to do, because they could still hear. I started singing a Notre Dame fight song to them just to try to give them some hope.
Yeah.
But you try everything you can in order to save these people. I had an incident, and not that it stuck in my mind or anything, but it was July 14th, 2004.
Oh, that didn't stick in your mind.
Didn't stick in my mind at all. Somebody had shot through the window of our quick check that was closing at 11. They were right there in closing. They were robbing the place. And the guy gave him over the money. This guy, Eduardo, who we all knew because we were in there for coffee all the time. And as soon as they raised the gun, he turned around to run away, and they shot him in the back. So when we got there, it was almost, he probably wasn't down for 2 or 3 minutes. He's still alive. White as a ghost, eyes black basketballs. And I remember him, we get him on a stretcher. And I remember him looking at me and going, "Don't let me die." That's what all he said. "Don't let me die." And I said, you try to be compassionate. He said, "Listen, we're doing everything we can. Just sit tight, relax. We got you." And we don't got him. I told him a lie, and I live with that every single day. I mean, it's almost 20 years ago, but I live with it every single day that I told him, we got you, and we don't.
So you want to hear something interesting about that "don't let me die" phenomena. So as a trauma surgeon, you get people all the time, shot, stabbed, car accidents, whatever it is. "Doc, don't let me die. Don't let me die." So over the years, I heard this in so many different scenarios that I decided to do a study about it. So in 2009, I published a study in the American Surgeon where I surveyed hundreds of trauma surgeons around the United States about premonition of death. Like, if you think you're going to die, are you going to die? Or if you say,
that's the cop who gets shot in the finger versus the one that gets shot in the head that lives.
Right.
Yeah.
Or if you say, "I'm going to die," am I going to die really? So basically, in my results, over half of trauma surgeons believe that if a patient feels like they're going to have a premonition that something bad's going to happen, that oftentimes it does. So we know that patients' mental status can affect their physiological status. So if you have the willpower to survive, certain things get released in your body that may allow you to survive. So most doctors felt that you couldn't make yourself survive, but they felt that if you had a negative aspect, you were more likely to die.
Well, I'm sure the positive has a higher percentage of living.
So the people that say, "Doc, I got 3 kids. Please don't let me die. I'm not going to die." They don't die. But the guy who looks at you in the eye and says, "Doc, I'm dying," that guy dies.
Wow.
You know what else is weird too? When you're doing CPR and someone, their eyes are open and it's like they're looking at you. It looks like they want to say something to you. It's like.
Yeah, it's never, End of Life is not a John Wayne movie.
No.
There's no fancy last words. It's the worst moment of their life. And if you weren't human, it wouldn't, I would say if it didn't transfer onto you, then you're not human.
Yeah.
So Synergy, thank you so much for sending that question in. Keep sending in your questions, and we will try to get them on the air. They won't always be that heavy. Sometimes we get a fun question once in a while. So, Doc, we made contact through our good friend, Mark Henninger, who's been working with you for a very, very long time, who has his upcoming nuptials coming, and hopefully I think all 3 of us are going to be there. And it's going to be a good time. But I have heard so much about you as when I go to church, you hear about Jesus and you hear about God all the time. And then there's Dr. Miggs. And I've heard about the same amount from Mark, from you. So you've left an indelible mark on his brain of some of the things that you've done. I even know how you met. That's how much I remember it. It was a car accident, and some guy comes walking up behind him and he says, "Hey, you need some help?" And when first responders are like, no, we got it. Well, I'm a trauma surgeon. Well, hey, go right ahead. Go right ahead.
Have at it, Doc.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful that you're here. I'm very, very grateful. And I know your schedule is really, really tight. I know you spent all day in the OR.
I'm happy to be here.
And he's got another one tonight.
Right after this.
Oh, my. You got another?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we better hurry up so somebody doesn't check out.
So that's it for this episode of the Sunday.
Yeah. Thanks for coming in. So why don't you give our audience a little bit about yourself?
I always tell people my life started with trauma. So even as a child, I was in a major plane crash at Kennedy Airport coming back from Italy. Every summer I used to go to Italy from like June to September. And September 15th, 1970, we were coming back from Italy, and the plane hit the runway, split in half, engines fell off. I have the picture. I'll show it to you. It's like 90 degrees off the side of the runway. Bad plane crash. I broke my collarbone. I've been in an explosion. I've been run over by a car 3 times.
You made a Kevlar?
Yeah, no kidding.
My last day as a medic, I used to be a medic before I was a doctor. My last day in EMS was we were T-boned, flipped over, broke my shoulder, my hand in 3 places, went through the roof of the ambulance. So I've had some pretty bad stuff happen to me over the years.
Your real name's not Steve Rogers, is it?
So I figure I got like 1 or 2 more lives left out of my 9 lives.
I think it's more like Clark Kent.
The plane crash alone. So Mike and I were on a flight flying into Philly in January of 2022, and it was during a snowstorm.
Mm-hmm.
I have never been so scared in my life because we're coming in at 25 mile an hour wind shear just like this, and I'm looking at the runway and it's white. I go, what the hell is about to happen? And we hit, and you can feel us sliding. I don't know about you. I don't like flying.
It's that loss of control. You know, I always say, me as a surgeon, I'm taking care of one person. You know, sometimes you get multiple casualties at the same time, but my hands, people are in 1-to-1 relationship. These pilots have 200, 300 people in their hands every single day, and we take it for granted.
Yeah.
It's really crazy when you think about it.
Safest way to fly, but
I mean, statistically, it's really, really safe, but still, that lack of control bothers a person like me.
99.9% of other transportation accidents you don't hear anything about, but one plane goes down, you hear everything about it. So
I happen to be one of those people that survived one.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Now, after you had that plane crash, like it had to lead you down some sort of path. Like, I'm kind of meant for something a little bit better, a little bit more.
Yeah. You don't know whether a career chooses the individual or the individual chooses a career. But I always felt like I always wanted or felt like I deserved to be in that emergency trauma atmosphere. It just came naturally to me. I'm not a big thinker. I'm more of a reactor, and I usually react to things in the right way in that hospital setting. So it worked well for me as a medic, and then it worked well for me as a trauma surgeon. Well,
I have noticed this throughout my life, that there are 2 types of people. There's those people who study, and they're the academic, you know, and then there's the other people who are the doers.
Right.
And you can break it down into every single aspect of life. Like even in police work, there's administrators and there's street cops.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
So, and there's going to be people who run towards the danger, and there's going to be people who run away.
That right.
Yeah. Unfortunately, in every profession, there's one of each usually. So where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Hudson County, North Bergen, New Jersey.
Okay.
And a funny story is across the street.
Where's your accent?
Jersey, come on.
No, you don't have that Hudson County accent.
Hudson County accent.
We know way too many people from Hudson County.
I guess I've been around a little bit. But so across the street from my house, there was a guy who used to give me a quarter to go down to Tiny's, which was a liquor store down in North Bergen, with 25 cents to buy him Schweppes ginger ale every day. So I used to go to him and I used to give it to him, and he used to start like throwing punches with me, and I didn't think much of it. Years would go by. We had a good relationship like this, and I found out that it's Cinderella Man. He was my next door neighbor.
Bergen, Jimmy Braddock?
Jimmy Braddock was my next door neighbor, lived directly across from me, and he used to throw punches with me as a kid, and I had no idea who he was.
Yeah, so I had a friend of mine that worked with him because he was an operating engineer later in his life, and said he was real quiet. Yeah. They used to give him the cake jobs because he was Jimmy Braddock.
Yeah.
He used to get to work the elevator going up and down when they were building Verrazano. But yeah, so you've actually gotten punched by a professional fighter, a heavyweight champ of the world. That's check.
Yeah.
And trauma cert, check.
Yeah.
You got punched by one too.
So as you matriculate,
Jerry Cooney punched you right in the ribs.
Yeah, Jerry Cooney did punch me in the ribs. That is true, but he was never champion. Yeah, he thought it was funny, man. He's a lefty. He shook my hand and he came in with the left in my ribs. I'm like, you do that again, old man. I'm going to break your hip. I mean, it hurt. Yeah. I remember waking up the next day going, damn, man, that was rough. So you grew up getting punched by Jimmy Braddock. Yeah. But how did this, what was your career path?
So I always knew I was going to go into medicine. My dad was a doctor.
How?
A great role model. Me and my brother both became doctors. And I knew I was too young to become a doctor, so I decided to become an EMT and a medic. So back then you could do it when you were 15 years old. So when I was 15, I went to night school, became an EMT, started riding for West New York, New Jersey, that EMS squad. Loved it. And then went to medical school and went through the whole thing and did my fellowship at the #1 place in the world for trauma.
What was the draw to this field of medicine, like this medical, like even with an EMT? What was the draw? Because people will often have high hopes of doing this stuff. Hey, listen, every parent wants their kid to be a doctor or something of that nature, or a lawyer. But then when you get in it, you're like, oh man, I don't think this is for me. What was your draw once you became an EMT?
It never felt wrong. I just felt like I always was in the right place and where I wanted to be. And I always tell people, even today, when I never have a problem getting out of bed and going to work, ever.
Well, they say that if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life.
I couldn't agree with that more. I love doing what I do every day. I love taking care of patients. I love operating.
So you start going up and you find your specialty. You go, where'd you go to college?
I went to Rutgers.
Okay.
Rutgers in Jersey. And then I went to University of Maryland for my fellowship in trauma and critical care. Yeah, exactly.
Went from a knight to a terp.
Well, you know how I know they're the Terps is because my brother used to go to Western Maryland.
Okay.
And we went down there and we went to the University of Maryland for a party or something, and I stole a pair of lacrosse shorts.
And it had
the little logo for the Terps on it.
It's actually a terrapin.
Yeah, a turtle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. The path to being a doctor is so long, and it takes up so much of your life. We just had a woman in here. She was FDNY paramedic, and she always wanted to be a doctor, but somebody had gotten a hold of her and said, because she wanted to have a family, and somebody had gotten a hold of her and said, don't be so quick to give up your life to be a doctor. There's other avenues of the medical field. Was that ever something in your mind? There was just no doubt.
I mean, there's a hell of a lot of sacrifice.
Yeah.
I mean, you're studying your ass off, college, after that to get into medical school, then to stay into medical school, and then after that, and then there's no holidays as a doctor.
Yeah.
You got to work Christmas, you got to work New Year's.
Especially early in your career.
Yeah. And my kids had a lot of, I was supposed to be with my kids last night. I was in the operating room till midnight, that kind of stuff. They're home from college and I'm still operating. So there's a lot of personal sacrifice. There's a lot of financial sacrifice. Medical school is expensive. But,
and then as a resident, you're not making crap.
I would make $30,000 as a resident working 100 plus hours a week.
And sure, you're a doctor, but you're not making doctor money yet.
No.
And I know, and you're drowning in debt.
Yeah.
So during your residency, do you have to start paying back your medical?
You can be deferred. But, all your friends you went to college with who went into business school are making a couple $100,000, during that time while you're making $30,000 a year for many years.
Now I'm sure.
But again,
I'm a doctor. Yeah.
But never had any regrets, never looked back. I love what I do.
But I guarantee you didn't start this field for the money.
No, you can't.
Because if you're in it for just the money, you're in it for the wrong reasons.
I mean, now doctors they used to live a really good life. Now you live a good life. It's not as lucrative as it was, 10, 20 years ago.
Insurance companies aren't paying as much as they used to.
They screwed us royally. Yeah.
Which, that's the one thing you don't want to skimp on.
No.
Yeah, exactly.
You can skimp on a lot of things in this world, but medical care, I don't know about that.
Yeah, and the new doctors going into medicine, want 9 to 5 jobs. They don't want to be on call. They don't want to be on weekends. It's a whole different lifestyle now. I'm like kind of a dinosaur in terms of being a surgeon.
Well, general practitioners could be 9 to 5. Right?
You'd be surprised. Some surgeons are 9 to 5 now.
Are they really?
Yeah, but that's how they do it. So a general practitioner, even a specialty, they're always associated with the hospital. Like my urologist, I know he's always getting called out to Morristown and to do some sort of surgery. So I don't know what that does. Like, I don't understand the whole physician field. It's something that's very foreign to me.
So it used to be that we were all in private practice. We hung our own shingle. We had our own staff. We paid our own bills. And then what happened is the insurance companies over the last 10, 20 years forced everybody to be employed by hospital networks and hospital systems. And you lose control of everything. And they did that so that the insurance companies can make deals with the hospitals to pay you a certain amount to control costs and stuff like that. And that ruined medicine, unfortunately.
Yet they're still charging a lot for supplies.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have a problem with that. I looked at the bill I was in the hospital a couple of years ago for one night, and I'm looking at the
system's completely broken.
Wow.
We could talk about this for 10 hours, and we're never going to fix it. It's a bad system.
Do you think it's just run by greed?
It's run by
or
it's run as a business rather than something we should be doing for society. I think that's the problem.
That's an interesting. That's an interesting take on it. It's run as a business,
Yeah.
and not everything in this world. The business of police work. We've heard this before. It's not a business.
No.
It's a calling. It's something you do because you love it,
and it's a lifestyle.
There's benefits to it, of course. Now, you've worked through your residency, and there's many different specialties out there. Was trauma something that you always worked towards?
Yeah, I always wanted to be I struggled between emergency medicine and trauma because they attract the same type of personalities where you want immediate